VikesNow, Dustin Baker, the April 16th edition Saturday. This one will probably be a shorty because I think this topic is straightforward. I want to nominate the four most likely trade partners for the Vikings on draft night. I'm going to do them in order. I think there is momentum from you, perhaps from me. I think I'm warming up to it. Just the general masses that the Vikings are either likely to trade down or it is a wise idea because in December, January, February, the most likely candidates from mock drafts, credible folks, were Ahmad Sauce Garner and Derek Stingley to land with the Vikings at the number 12 pick. Alas, those dudes might be too good to play for the purple team. So, if they are snatched off the board at number 12, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, who has habitually preached value, and more value, might channel some of the Browns' energy from the last few drafts and wheel and deal. Now, there's not a lot of precedent for the Browns trading in the first round as of late with Andrew Berry, but with Kwesi needing to fill out a depth chart, it might be too titillating not to trade the 12th pick and maybe stockpile some other assets. So you asked me a month ago, perhaps when I started the show, I think I even said, why don't we just stay there and get the number 12 pick? Well, I think that the tide may be changing on that sentiment for the general public and for reality of what may happen. So I want you to be prepared. If we have a Spielman-esque trade down on Thursday the 28th, you were warned. So here in ascending order, I'm going to rank the teams most likely to trade with the Vikings. Again, I'm not cool, and I don't have a graphics department on either side to illustrate. Perhaps I'll get there in time. So I'm just going to verbally do this. You got to follow along. It's not too complicated. The fourth most likely team to trade with the Vikings in the first round is the Chiefs. I devoted a whole episode to it, so you can always go back and watch that. But the fact of the matter is they traded Tyreek Hill, transaction that fell out of the sky. Remember that? There was like the rumor about it. I think it was on Tuesday. And within 45 minutes, son of a bitch was traded. Plays for the Dolphins now. So, arguably, they probably want a playmaker to replace Tyreek. And in theory, they could get a pretty damn good pass catcher at number 12, which is where your Vikings pick. And because of the fruits of that Tyreek Hill trade, they have the 29th pick and their organic 30th pick. I'm not sure which was which. So they have two first-rounders, and here's the sizzle of that. I think the Vikings could get both of them. Perhaps Minnesota would have to throw in a little deal sweetener, like, I don't know, 5th round or something like that. Most trade calculators find a way to get the 29th and 30th pick to the Vikings for the 12th, perhaps with a little bit of incentive with Vikings throwing on something extra. However, you'd have two first-rounders on 5-year rookie contracts. And if Kwesi is on board with getting deeper on the roster, there should be good guys available with those picks. You'll recall Harrison Smith was picked with either 29th or 30th pick in 2012. So the Vikings fan base, has precedent for this. Guys can be found who are productive in the late rounds. So on the Chiefs, in theory, again, they want a wide receiver. Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, I think I screwed his name up in here a couple times, Drake London, Chris Olave, I hope I'm saying that right. There's a lot of playmakers that can be grabbed, and not all of those guys will be off the board at 12. So if the one the Chiefs are in love with happens to be there, then they could pick up the phone and boom, the Vikings have two first-round picks, which isn't horrible. I think you could get behind it in a hurry. The next most likely team, 3 on my pecking order, we're scaling up to 1, is the Saints. They hold the 16th and 19th picks in this draft. They also have the 49th and the 98th. So it makes sense. They're sort of kind of like the Vikings right now, rebuilding on the fly without formally announcing it, trying to be competitive, keeping Jameis in the saddle. But they are a franchise that's not accustomed to shitty quarterback play. And I'm not saying Jameis is shitty, but last year he was just decent before he got hurt. He wasn't dynamic. The team was winning. I know that's all that counts. But I don't know if Jameis Winston is a long-term QB1 solution. He was certainly drafted as such 7 years ago, 8 years ago. But I don't know if he's the long-term dude. So, in theory, and there's new people in charge there. Sean Payton don't work here no more. And thank God. We don't like him. But yeah, so they've got a new regime there. So in theory, I'm not sure which pick they would use, but they could pair, let's say, the 16th pick and the 49th pick in the second round, send it to the Vikings, bada bang, they go up and get Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, whoever they like. If there's panic on draft night that oh my goodness, these quarterbacks are going off the board and we wanted to get one, then boom, that's the Saints can hop in the conversation, trade with a team that neither one of the franchises like each other. Maybe that's just us fans. Who knows? But yeah, so the Saints might need a quarterback, and the Vikings should have a sweet spot to get Pickett or Willis, unless the Falcons or Panthers spoil everything and reach for those two guys inside the top 10. Chiefs, Saints, Nexus, Steelers. Take everything I just said about the Saints and replicate it for the purposes of this chat. When Mitchell Trubisky was signed about a month ago now, there was kind of they're going to unlock him like the Bears couldn't. They're not going to mismanage him, so Trubisky is going to be the guy. But now that kind of cooled a little bit over the last 4 weeks, you start to wonder, was that a plan to sign a decent patch-over quarterback or to have an honest-to-goodness quarterback competition with a guy the Pittsburgh will draft in this draft? And I don't know organically with their 20th pick if they would be able to get Willis or Pickett. It kind of depends on how the board starts to look even before the Vikings draft. But you have to ask yourself on Trubisky, is it more likely that the Steelers are going into this bad boy with Trubisky as a solution, that everybody else got him wrong and we're going to get him right? Does that feel like a Steeler thing to do, one of the most sturdy franchises in sports? Perhaps stranger things have happened, but in reality, the other part to ask yourself is, or did they come up with this plan to have Trubisky as a bridge quarterback into Willis, Corral, Pickett, whichever one that they are in love with? So there, the Vikings would get the 20th pick and hopefully the 52nd pick in the second round. 2 for the price of 1. One's a first rounder, one's a second rounder. And then Kwesi Adofo-Mensah could slide back and perhaps get Andrew Booth at the corner, and then you have an extra piece of draft capital at the number 52 hole to draft another playmaker, defender, edge rusher, whatever you need, you'd have that. So it's the same mentality as the Saints. New Orleans and Pittsburgh probably want quarterbacks of the future. Bless their heart for trying to do it in this draft, which is considered one of the weakest in a long time. Not our problem. Not my problem, at least. So if we want to do some highway robbery, especially with the Saints and with Tomlin's Steelers, let's do it. And the final one, and this one I think makes the most sense because the Chargers are a right tackle away from having something very special in Los Angeles. Their roster is fantastic. They're knocking at the door to the postseason. They've got, a top 8 quarterback in the league already in Justin Herbert. But at right tackle, they employ Storm Norton. And on this shirt right here, you'll notice, you'll remember that Storm Norton played for these Vikings, and he couldn't even start for the Vikings. So why the hell is he starting for the Chargers and protecting Justin Herbert? Nobody knows. So last year, the Chargers put draft capital into Rashawn Slater, who a lot of you wanted, and you would have been right, to protect the blind side of Herbert. Well, if you want to be smart about this, kind of the un-Viking way, build the trenches and protect your somewhat pocket passer in Herbert, you better get a bookend on the other side of the line, and that ain't Storm Norton. At least it hasn't been to date. He's got a real prototypical Vikings PFF grade where it's like 50-something overall, 30 or 40 in pass blocking, does a decent job run blocking, and somehow the Chargers got stuck with the poor bloke. But there is a guy named Trevor Pening who is, Northern Iowa? One of those schools where it's like directional in the Midwest state. I can't remember which one it is. But if indeed the Chargers want to get a tackle to partner with Rashawn Slater and make this offense tick, don't get Herbert injured, then they could trade up with the Vikings to get their right tackle. And 12 would be a very secure spot for them to get it, especially if some of the titans of industry in the first 11 picks slide down, and that is the tackles, like Charles Cross, the one dude that I mispronounce his name. Let's put it this way. If any of the tackles that are supposed to go certifiably in the top 11 don't, or they just want Trevor Pening, then the Chargers might pick up the phone and say, Kwesi, what can we do? The problem there is they don't have a second-round pick. So Adofo-Mensah would have to maybe snag something from next year, put stuff in the piggy bank, or take their third-rounder and then more next year. The only crinkle in this plan is that the Chargers don't have a second rounder. They have the 17th pick, but it's going to take a lot more than that for the Vikings to give up 5 spots of draft capital. But I rank the Chargers as the most likely to do it, not because their need is more dire, but because it just seems more sensical to trade up and get a tackle to protect Herbert than it does to take a flyer on Willis or Pickett, who might be there organically for the Saints or the Steelers when it's their turn to pick. So, Chiefs number 4, Saints number 3, Steelers number 2, Chargers number 1. I know on draft night they're going to do a trade, and it'll be none of these teams I mentioned, and I'll look like an imbecile, but it comes with the territory. Sometimes I get it wrong. But those are the teams I have pegged, kind of the consensus of the body politic in the Vikings community too. So remember those. And remember also, it's not the end of the world if Vikings trade back on draft night. There was this panic last year when they slid down 9 spots to eventually get Darisaw. I was at the draft, and the cell reception wasn't great, so I couldn't see it. But after the fact, my wife and I got back to our hotel room, and I saw after it all went down, all of the short-term panic about what are we doing? We just traded away our first-round pick, as if some people thought like they made a mistake, like they didn't know what they were doing, and they were just abdicating it, like we used to do, not getting up to the podium in time. But no, trade backs aren't horrible. Give the first-year general manager the benefit of the doubt. And it might just so happen with the Chiefs, Saints, Steelers, or Chargers. That's what I got for you on this Saturday. I will be back tomorrow. Not sure of the topic, but it should be something fun. And Skol, baby.